We've decided your sister needs your apartment, Mom declared at dinner. She has 3 kids now. I silently pulled out my phone. Interesting, because all 200 units are already occupied. Dad spilled her wine when the crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead as I sat at my parents' dining table, listening to my mother drone on about family obligations. I should have known something was coming when she insisted on this family dinner at their estate in Greenwich, Connecticut. My sister Bethany sat across from me, that smug little smile playing at the corners of her lips that I'd learned to recognize over 32 years of sibling warfare. Madison, sweetheart, your father and I have been discussing your living situation, Mom began, setting down her fork with deliberate precision. She always did that when she was about to drop a bomb. We've decided your sister needs your apartment. She has 3 kids now, and that cramped townhouse in Westchester just isn't cutting it anymore. I nearly choked on my wine. My apartment. The penthouse loft in Tribeca that I'd worked my fingers to the bone for. The place I purchased 5 years ago with my own money, my own credit, my own blood, sweat, and tears after building my tech consulting business from scratch. Excuse me? I managed to keep my voice steady, though my hand tightened around the stem of my wine glass. Bethany leaned forward, her perfectly manicured nails drumming on the mahogany table. Well, you're single, Maddie. You don't need all that space. I've got Jackson, Emma, and little Sophia to think about. They need room to grow, and your place is perfect. 4 bedrooms, those gorgeous high ceilings, that rooftop terrace. My place that I bought, I said slowly, each word carefully measured. With my own money. Dad cleared his throat, not meeting my eyes. Now, Madison, be reasonable. Family helps family. Your sister is struggling, and you're doing quite well for yourself. Surely you can find something smaller, more appropriate for a woman living alone. I silently pulled out my phone, scrolling through my emails with deliberate calm while they all stared at me expectantly. The silence stretched out like taffy, becoming increasingly uncomfortable. My mother's eye twitched, she hated being ignored. Madison Elizabeth Harper, are you even listening to us? Mom's voice had that sharp edge that used to make me jump when I was 10. I looked up, meeting her gaze directly. Interesting, because all 200 units are already occupied. Dad knocked over his wine glass when he reached for the bottle, the deep red liquid spreading across the white tablecloth like blood. What are you talking about? What 200 units? I set my phone down, the screen displaying the header of an email from my property management company. The apartment building. My apartment building. The one I purchased 18 months ago. All 200 residential units, including my penthouse, are currently occupied by tenants with legally binding leases. The silence that followed was absolutely delicious. Bethany's face had gone pale. You don't own a building. That's impossible. You run some little tech consulting business. Some little tech consulting business that I sold last year for $47 million, I corrected pleasantly. Which I then diversified into real estate investments. The Tribeca building was my first major purchase. I kept the penthouse for myself and renovated the rest. Would you like to see the portfolio? Mom had frozen, her mouth slightly open, looking remarkably like a fish. Dad, ever the pragmatist, had already started putting the pieces together, his face cycling through shock, realization, and something that might have been embarrassment. You never told us you sold your company, he said quietly. You never asked, I replied, taking a sip of my wine. In fact, the last time we discussed my career, Mom told me I should give it up and focus on finding a husband before my eggs dried up. I believe that was at Thanksgiving, right before you spent 2 hours praising Bethany's artwork that her husband actually painted. That's not, I didn't, Bethany sputtered, her face flushing. Kevin just helped me with some of the technical aspects. Technical aspects like holding the brush and making every single brushstroke? I pulled up an Instagram post on my phone, showing a video her husband had accidentally posted and quickly deleted, clearly showing him painting the entire canvas she'd claimed as her own masterpiece. The one that had sold for $15,000 at the charity auction. The internet never forgets, Beth. My mother found her voice again, though it came out strangled. This is absurd. You're making up stories because you don't want to help your sister. Real estate empire? 47 million? Don't be ridiculous, Madison. I pulled up my banking app, the private wealth management portal, and turned the screen toward her. The balance displayed made her face go white. That's just my primary checking account. Would you like to see the investment portfolio? The property holdings? I also have a diversified stock portfolio, 3 commercial properties in Manhattan, and a vacation home in Martha's Vineyard that I haven't mentioned because, well, nobody ever asks about my life. Bethany had tears streaming down her face now, though whether from anger, embarrassment, or shock, I couldn't tell. This isn't fair. You always got everything handed to you. The smart one, the successful one, and now you're rich too? I actually laughed at that. Handed to me? Beth, Mom and Dad paid for your entire college education at Sarah Lawrence. They bought you and Kevin your townhouse as a wedding gift. They've been paying for the kids' private school tuition. I got a state school education that I paid for myself with scholarships and 3 part-time jobs, and when I started my business, Dad told me I was wasting my time and should get a real job. We supported you emotionally, Mom protested weakly. No, you supported Beth emotionally. You told me I was being difficult when I worked late. You said I was selfish when I couldn't make it to family dinners because I was building my company. You compared me to Beth constantly, asking why I couldn't be more nurturing, more feminine, more focused on family. I stood up, tucking my phone back into my purse. And now you want me to hand over my home to her because she has kids? Kids, by the way, whose private school tuition you could stop paying if Beth actually sold her own artwork instead of passing off Kevin's paintings as her own. Dad finally spoke up, his voice gruff. Madison, sit down. Let's discuss this reasonably. No, I don't think so. I grabbed my coat from the back of the chair. There's nothing to discuss. My apartment is mine. My building is mine. My success is mine. And none of it is available for redistribution just because you finally realized Beth married a loser who can't support his family. How dare you? Bethany shrieked, jumping to her feet. Kevin is a wonderful father and husband. Kevin is a failed artist who drinks too much and hasn't held a steady job in 5 years, I said bluntly. Everyone knows it. The only reason you're not drowning is because Mom and Dad keep throwing you life preservers. But I'm done watching you all pretend that I'm the selfish one for not joining the rescue operation. I walked toward the door, but Mom's voice stopped me. If you walk out that door, you're no longer part of this family. I turned back, and I must have looked different because she actually took a step back. Mom, I stopped being part of this family when I was 16 and Beth got pregnant with Jackson, and suddenly I became the family ATM instead of the daughter. I'm just making it official now. The drive back to Manhattan gave me time to think, to let the adrenaline fade, to wonder if I just made a terrible mistake. But when I pulled up to my building, my beautiful, renovated, fully occupied building, and took the private elevator up to my penthouse, I felt nothing but relief. I poured myself a glass of wine and stood on my rooftop terrace, looking out at the glittering cityscape. My phone buzzed incessantly with calls and texts from my family, but I ignored them all. Instead, I opened my email and responded to a message I'd been putting off. The message was from Marcus Chen, a venture capitalist who'd been courting me for months about partnering on a new venture capital firm focused on underrepresented founders. I'd been hesitant, unsure if I wanted to dive back into that world after the intensity of building and selling my last company. But now? Now I was ready. I typed out my response, committing to co-founding the firm with an initial investment of $20 million, and hit send. My phone rang again. This time it was Sophie, my best friend and former business partner. I answered. Please tell me you're not spiraling, she said without preamble. I saw your location is at home, which means family dinner ended, and you only come straight home when it's been really bad. I just told my family to go to hell, I said, surprised by how steady my voice was. They wanted me to give Beth my apartment. Sophie's laugh was sharp and bitter. Of course they did. What did you tell them? That I own the building. The whole building? And about 200 other things they apparently never bothered to notice about my life. Oh my God, Sophie breathed. You told them about the sale? Everything. The sale, the investments, all of it. How did they take it? Mom disowned me. Good, Sophie said fiercely. Maybe now you can finally be free of their bullshit. Speaking of which, are you still coming to the fundraiser next week? Because I need you there. Marcus Chen will be there, and he's bringing that angel investor from Silicon Valley. I smiled despite everything. I just committed $20 million to co-founding a venture capital firm with Marcus. Sophie squealed so loudly I had to pull the phone away from my ear. Are you serious? Madison, that's incredible. Wait, is this a burn it all down and rise from the ashes moment? Because I am here for it. Maybe, I admit it. Or maybe I'm just tired of playing small to make other people comfortable. We talked for another hour, making plans, discussing opportunities, dreaming bigger than I'd let myself dream in years. When we hung up, I felt lighter than I had in months. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. Most were from my mother and Bethany, alternating between guilt-tripping, accusations, and demands that I apologize. There were 3 from my father, progressively more conciliatory in tone. The last one, sent at 2:47 a.m., read, "Your mother is upset. Maybe you could have handled this better. Call me." Maybe I could have handled it better. Maybe I could have been gentler, more understanding, more accommodating. But I'd been gentle and understanding and accommodating for 32 years, and it had gotten me nothing but taken for granted. I was done with maybe. Instead of responding to any of them, I called my lawyer, Jennifer Morrison, a shark in Chanel suits who'd handled the sale of my company and all my subsequent real estate dealings. But first, I needed coffee. Strong coffee. The kind that could fuel revenge and strategic planning in equal measure. I walked to my favorite cafe 3 blocks from my building, a small place tucked between a vintage bookstore and a flower shop. The owner, Maria, greeted me with her usual warm smile that faltered when she saw my face. "Rough night?" she asked, already preparing my usual order without being asked. "Rough family," I corrected, sliding into my favorite corner booth. "Ah," she nodded knowingly. "Those are the worst kind of rough. At least with a rough night, you can sleep it off." While I waited for my coffee, I scrolled through my phone, looking at the text messages I'd been ignoring. Bethany had sent a series of increasingly frantic messages starting around midnight. "You're being so selfish. The kids need space. Kevin lost his job again. We can't afford our mortgage. Mom and Dad won't help us anymore because you made them feel guilty. You always have to be the center of attention, don't you? Just because you have money doesn't make you better than us." That last one made me laugh out loud, causing the couple at the next table to glance over. The irony was stunning. For 32 years, I'd been invisible. Now that I'd finally stepped into the light, I was suddenly attention-seeking. My mother's messages were different, more calculated, more manipulative. "I didn't raise you to be cruel, Madison. Your sister is struggling. Don't you have any compassion? We're family. Family sacrifices for each other. You're breaking your father's heart." That last one stung, despite everything. My father had always been the softer of my 2 parents, the one who'd occasionally slip me $20 for pizza when I was working late nights on my startup. He'd never stood up for me, but he'd also never been actively cruel. Maria brought my coffee, along with a chocolate croissant I hadn't ordered. "On the house," she said. "You look like you need it." "Thanks, Maria." I took a sip of the coffee, letting the warmth spread through me. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course, mija. When you opened this cafe, did your family support you?" She laughed, a sound that held years of experience. "My mother told me I was wasting my culinary degree. My brothers said I should marry rich instead of working so hard. My father, rest his soul, he was the only one who believed in me. He gave me $5,000 from his savings and told me to make my dreams real." "Did the others come around?" "Eventually. After I was successful and they couldn't deny it anymore. But by then, I didn't need their approval anymore. That's the thing about building something yourself, you learn that other people's opinions, even family, don't define your worth." I sat with that wisdom for a while, watching the morning rush of professionals grabbing their coffee before work. These were my people, the hustlers, the builders, the ones who got up every day and made things happen. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a number I didn't recognize. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Madison Harper," I said professionally. "Ms. Harper, this is Principal Roberts from Lakeside Academy." The woman's voice was crisp and formal. "I'm calling regarding your niece and nephews." My stomach dropped. "Is everything okay? Are they hurt?" "They're fine physically," she assured me. "However, their tuition for the spring semester hasn't been paid. We've been trying to reach Mr. and Mrs. Peterson for 3 weeks. The accounts show that a Richard and Caroline Harper have been listed as the guarantors on the account, but they've informed us they're no longer covering the costs." Of course they had. My parents were punishing Bethany for my sins, and the kids were caught in the crossfire. "How much is owed?" I asked. "The balance for all 3 children for the semester is $42,000. I didn't even hesitate. "I'll wire the funds today. But I want the account changed. Remove my parents as guarantors and put me down instead. Direct all future communications to me." There was a pause. "Ms. Harper, are you certain? This is a significant financial commitment. The annual tuition for 3 children is $84,000, I finished for her. "I'm aware. I'll also establish an education account to cover them through high school. Just send me the necessary paperwork." After I hung up, I sat staring at my phone. I'd just committed to nearly $1 million in private school education. Money I'd sworn I wouldn't give to my family. But the kids, they hadn't asked for any of this. They didn't deserve to be pawns in an adult war. I called Jennifer Morrison. "Madison, I was just about to call you," she answered. "You won't believe the email I got from your mother's attorney." "She got an attorney?" "Apparently, she's threatening to sue you for emotional distress caused by your public humiliation of the family." Jennifer sounded amused rather than concerned. "It's completely baseless, of course. I just wanted you to know." I rubbed my temples, feeling a headache building. "That's not why I called, but we'll get back to that. I need you to do something for me. I just paid my nieces and nephews' private school tuition." "Madison, I know what I said. But the kids don't deserve to suffer because the adults are acting like children. I want you to set up an education trust specifically for their schooling, elementary through graduate school if they choose. But with conditions." "What kind of conditions?" "They maintain at least a 3.0 GPA, they stay out of legal trouble, and neither of their parents can access the funds. If Bethany or Kevin try to withdraw money, the trust immediately locks and requires court approval to access. Also, I want quarterly reports on how the money is being used. You're a better person than I would be, Jennifer said. No, I'm just trying to break the cycle. These kids are going to grow up knowing that success isn't something to be punished for. That having money doesn't make you the family villain. That boundaries and generosity can coexist. I'll have the documents ready by end of day, she promised. Now, about your mother's lawsuit threat. Let her sue, I said, surprising myself with how calm I felt. Discovery would be very interesting for her, wouldn't it? All those years of financial support to Bethany. The preferential treatment. The documented text messages asking me to give up my property. Let's see how that plays in court. Jennifer's laugh was sharp with approval. Already handled. They withdrew the threat after I outlined what discovery would look like. Now, about these education trusts you want to set up, let's make them bulletproof. After we hung up, I realized my coffee had gone cold, but I felt warmer inside than I had in days. There was something clarifying about drawing lines in the sand, about deciding what you would and wouldn't tolerate. I spent the rest of the morning handling the practical matters, wiring the tuition payment, signing documents, making arrangements. By noon, I'd secured my nieces' and nephews' education through whatever level they wanted to achieve, while ensuring their parents couldn't turn it into a weapon or a piggy bank. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I called my grandmother. Patricia Harper was 92, sharp as a tack, and living in a retirement community in Vermont. She was my father's mother, and unlike the rest of the family, she'd always seen me clearly. Madison Jane. Her voice was strong despite her age. I was wondering when you'd call. I heard about the family explosion. How did you? Your father called me, crying like he used to when he was 7 and fell off his bike. Told me his daughters were fighting and it was tearing the family apart. She snorted. I told him maybe he should have thought about that before he raised one daughter to be a princess and the other to be the foundation that holds everything up while getting no credit. I couldn't help but laugh. Graham, that's harsh. It's honest. Your grandfather, God rest him, always said that Caroline, your mother, was raising those girls with impossible expectations. He said you'd either break under the weight or become strong enough to walk away. Looks like he was right. She paused. Tell me what happened, sweetheart. The whole story. So I did. I told her everything, the dinner, the demand for my apartment, revealing my success, the aftermath, all of it. She listened without interrupting, occasionally making small sounds of understanding or disapproval. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, your grandfather left you something in his will. I've been holding on to it, waiting until you were strong enough to receive it without guilt. After hearing this story, I think that time is now. Graham, you don't have to. Hush. It's not about have to. It's about want to. He saw something in you, even when you were just a little girl taking apart radios to see how they worked. He said you had the Harper spine, that ability to stand up straight even when everyone's trying to bend you. My throat tightened. I miss him. He'd be so proud of you, Madison. Not just because you're successful, but because you had the courage to demand respect. That's harder than making money. She cleared her throat. Now, I'm sending you a package. Should arrive tomorrow. Inside is a letter from your grandfather and something else. Don't open it until you're alone, and maybe have some tissues handy. You're making me nervous. Good. It's important. And Madison? Don't let them make you feel guilty for being strong. The world has enough weak women who apologize for breathing. It needs more women like you, women who build empires and refuse to shrink. After we hung up, I sat in my apartment, looking out at the city I conquered, feeling more supported by a 92-year-old woman in Vermont than I'd ever felt by my parents. Madison. How was the family dinner? Her cheerful tone suggested she already knew the answer would be entertaining. I need you to do something for me, I said. I want to set up a trust fund for each of my nieces and nephews. $250,000 each, accessible when they turn 25, on the condition that they use it for education or starting a business. Not accessible to their parents under any circumstances. There was a pause. Their parents are going to lose their minds. That's the idea. Can you have the paperwork ready by this afternoon? For you? Absolutely. Anything else? Yes. I want to establish a scholarship fund at my old state university. Full rides for students from low-income families studying computer science or engineering. I want to fund 10 students per year. That's going to be expensive. I know. And Jennifer? I want to name the Madison Harper Self-Made Scholarship Fund. She laughed, delighted. Oh, this is going to be good. I'll have everything ready by 3. At 3:15 p.m., I had all the documents signed. At 3:30, I sent an email to my parents and Bethany, ceasing Jennifer for legal purposes. The subject line read, regarding your request. The body was brief. I will not be providing my apartment to Bethany. However, I have established trust funds for Jackson, Emma, and Sophia, which will be available to them at age 25 for educational or entrepreneurial purposes. I have also established a scholarship fund at State University in the amount of $5 million, which will provide full rides to 10 students per year in perpetuity. These are my contributions to family and to the opportunities I believe in. They are non-negotiable and irrevocable. Do not contact me again unless you're prepared to have a relationship based on mutual respect rather than expectations of what I should provide. Madison. I hit send and immediately blocked their numbers. Sophie called 30 seconds later. Did you really just do what I think you did? Depends on what you think I did. Set up trust funds for the kids and then tell your parents to go fuck themselves in the most elegant way possible? That's exactly what I did. I love you so much right now. The next few days were blissfully quiet. I threw myself into work, meeting with Marcus and his team, reviewing business plans, and making strategic decisions about my investment portfolio. I met with the board of my building's management company, discussed renovation plans for my commercial properties, and started researching potential acquisitions. I also started therapy. Dr. Patricia Reeves came highly recommended, and within the first session, she'd identified patterns I'd been blind to for decades. You've been trying to earn their love by becoming invisible, she said during our second meeting. You succeeded professionally in spite of them, not because of them, and now you're angry that they still can't see you. Is that wrong? I asked. It's human, she replied. But Madison, you have to understand, you're looking for validation from people who are fundamentally incapable of giving it to you. Your mother needs to be the center of attention. Your sister needs to be the victim. Your father needs to be the peacekeeper. There's no role in that dynamic for you to be successful and separate. So what do? You do exactly what you're doing. You build a life that doesn't require their approval. And you grieve the family you wish you had. Grieving turned out to be harder than I expected. There were moments, stupid, small moments, when I wanted to call my mom. When I closed a major deal and wanted to share the news. When I felt lonely in my big, beautiful apartment and remembered childhood moments when things had been simpler. But then I'd remember the dinner. The casual cruelty of expecting me to hand over my home. The decades of being treated like the family ATM without any of the family warmth. And the grief would harden into something stronger. 3 weeks after the dinner, my father showed up at my building. The doorman called up, uncertain. Ms. Harper, your father is here. He says it's important. I could have said no. Should have, probably. But curiosity won out. Send him up. He looked smaller somehow, standing in my foyer, taking in the soaring ceilings and the art I collected, the evidence of a life he knew nothing about. Nice place, he said awkwardly. Thank you. Your mother wants me to apologize. But you don't want to, I finished for him. He sighed, and for a moment, he looked every one of his 67 years. I don't understand what happened, Maddie. We asked for a favor, and you scorched the earth. No, Dad. You demanded I give up my home, without asking, without even acknowledging that it was mine to give. There's a difference. We didn't know. Didn't know what? That I'd succeeded? That I'd made something of myself? Or did you just not care enough to ask? I kept my voice level, but I couldn't hide the hurt underneath. When was the last time you asked about my work, Dad? When was the last time Mom called just to see how I was doing? He couldn't answer. The trust funds for the kids will give them opportunities, I continued. Real opportunities to build something of their own, without having to shrink themselves to fit someone else's expectations. That's more than I ever got from you. That's not fair. Isn't it? You paid for Beth's entire college education. Her wedding. Her house. When I asked for help with tuition, you told me that if I was smart enough for college, I was smart enough to figure out how to pay for it. We were teaching you independence. No, you were playing favorites and calling it parenting. I walked to the door, opening it. I don't hate you, Dad. Either of you. But I'm done setting myself on fire to keep you warm. The trust funds are my final contribution to this family. Use them wisely or don't, but don't come back asking for more. He left without another word. I closed the door and slid down to the floor, letting the tears come. They weren't tears of regret, they were tears of release. Tears for the family I'd never really had and was finally admitting I'd never have. When I cried myself out, I called Sophie. I need to get out of New York for a while, I said. Want to go to Martha's Vineyard? I have a house there I've never mentioned. She laughed, the sound warm and familiar. You're ridiculous, and I love you, and yes. When do we leave? Tomorrow morning. The vineyard house was exactly what I needed, a restored sea captain's house with views of the ocean and enough distance from my old life to breathe. Sophie and I spent a week there, drinking wine on the deck, swimming in the cold Atlantic water, and planning the future. You know what you should do? Sophie said one night, slightly drunk on expensive Chardonnay. You should write a book. About building a business as a woman in tech. About family dynamics and success and all of it. Nobody wants to read that. Are you kidding? Everyone wants to read that. Do you know how many women are out there dealing with families who underestimate them? Who expect them to shrink? You could help people, Maddie. I thought about it, watching the stars reflect on the water. Maybe. Not maybe. Definitely. And you know what else? You should start a venture capital firm. Focus on women-led startups. Put your money where your mouth is. Now you're just talking crazy. But the idea stuck with me, growing roots, spreading branches. By the time we drove back to Manhattan, I had a business plan sketched out on paper and fire in my belly. 2 months later, Harper Ventures officially launched with $20 million in capital and a mission statement focused on funding women and minority entrepreneurs who'd been overlooked by traditional investors. Marcus came on board as a partner, bringing his expertise and connections. Sophie joined as COO, finally leaving the consulting firm that had been slowly crushing her soul. The launch party was held at my building's rooftop venue, a space I'd specifically designed for events. 200 people filled the terrace, a mix of entrepreneurs, investors, journalists, and tech industry leaders. The energy was electric. I was standing near the bar, discussing term sheets with a potential investor, when I saw them. My parents, dressed to the nines, walking through the entrance like they'd been invited. My stomach clenched, but I kept my face neutral. The investor, a woman named Diana Chen who'd built her own hedge fund, followed my gaze. Family? She asked knowingly. Unfortunately. Want me to have security escort them out? The offer was tempting, but I shook my head. No. Let's see what they want. My mother spotted me first, her face lighting up with that performative smile she used in public. She glided over, my father trailing behind like a reluctant shadow. She was wearing a designer dress I knew cost at least $10,000, money they apparently had for appearances but not for their granddaughter's education. Madison, darling. She air-kissed near my cheeks, and I caught the scent of her signature perfume. What a wonderful event. We're so proud of you. Diana raised an eyebrow but said nothing, excusing herself with remarkable diplomatic grace. Mom. Dad. I kept my voice level. This is a private event. Invitation only. Well, we're family, Mom said, as if that explained everything. Surely you don't need to invite your own parents. Actually, I do. Especially when those parents threatened to sue me for emotional distress 3 months ago. My father had the grace to look embarrassed. My mother's smile never wavered, though her eyes hardened. That was a misunderstanding. My attorney was being overzealous. Your attorney was following your instructions. A few nearby guests were starting to notice the tension. Sophie appeared at my elbow, her presence a silent offer of support. Madison has an important investor meeting in 5 minutes, Sophie said smoothly. Perhaps you could schedule time to catch up later? Through proper channels? My mother's mask cracked, just slightly. Proper channels? For my own daughter? Caroline. My father's voice was quiet but firm. Let's go. This isn't a time or place. For a moment, I thought my mother might cause a scene. But she was too conscious of the watching crowd, too aware that any outburst would reflect poorly on her. She straightened her shoulders and gave me a look that could freeze fire. We'll talk later, Madison. No, I said clearly. We won't. Not unless you can treat me with the same respect you'd give a stranger. Maybe then we can have a conversation. They left, my mother's heels clicking sharply against the rooftop floor, my father's hand on her elbow guiding her toward the exit. I watched them go, feeling a mix of relief and sadness. Sophie squeezed my arm. You okay? Yeah. Actually, I am. The rest of the evening was a triumph. We announced our first portfolio companies, I gave a speech about investing in overlooked founders, and by midnight, we fielded interest from investors totaling $50 million in additional capital. But the victory felt hollow when I got home and found a package waiting, the one my grandmother had promised. Inside was a letter in my grandfather's distinctive handwriting, dated 3 days before he died 5 years ago. My dearest Madison, if you're reading this, it means Patricia has decided you need to hear these words. She always did know the right timing for things, it's why our marriage lasted 65 years. I want you to know that I saw you, even when others didn't. I saw a little girl who asked questions that made adults uncomfortable. I saw a teenager who worked 3 jobs to pay for college because she was too proud to beg for help. I saw a young woman building something from nothing, with only her intelligence and determination as capital. Your father is a good man, but he's weak. He married a woman stronger than him and spent his life trying to keep the peace instead of doing what was right. Your mother is a complicated woman, shaped by her own disappointments, and she's passed those disappointments on to you and your sister in different ways. But you, Madison, you broke the mold. You refused to be small. You refused to apologize for your light. In this package, you'll find the deed to the Vermont property, 40 acres of land that's been in our family for 3 generations. Your father doesn't know I'm leaving it to you. He'll think it goes to him, and then to both his daughters. But it doesn't. It goes to you alone. Use it however you see fit. Build something. Sell it. Let it sit wild. It's yours, free and clear, a foundation that no one can take from you. And remember this, the people who are supposed to love you unconditionally are often the ones who place the most conditions on that love. It's not your job to meet those conditions. It's your job to build a life so full of genuine love and respect that their conditional love doesn't leave a hole. I'm proud of you, my girl. I was proud of you when you were 6 and building circuits with my old radio parts. I was proud of you when you graduated summa cum laude. And I'm proud of the woman you're becoming, even though I won't be there to see it. Stay strong. Stay true. And never, ever apologize for being extraordinary. All my love, Grandpa William. I read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down my face, before I looked at the deed. 40 acres in Vermont, with a small cabin on it, bordered by a stream and forest. I remembered visiting it as a child, remembered my grandfather teaching me to fish in that stream, remembered feeling safe there in a way I rarely felt at home. He'd given me more than land. He'd given me validation. He'd seen me. The next morning, I called my grandmother. You read it, she said. It wasn't a question. I can't accept the land, Gram. Dad was supposed to inherit. Your father has enough. Your grandfather made other provisions for him. This land was always meant for you. William told me years ago that you were the only one who appreciated it for what it was, not for what it could be sold for, but for what it represented. What does it represent? Freedom. Space. The ability to breathe without someone else's expectations suffocating you. She paused. What will you do with it? I thought about that question for the rest of the day. The land was worth probably $2 million if I sold it. I could donate it to a conservation trust. I could develop it into a retreat center. Or I could keep it. A place that was mine, completely mine, where I could go when the world got too loud. In the end, I decided to keep it but share it in a way that honored my grandfather's spirit. I established the William Harper Fellowship, a month-long retreat for women entrepreneurs who needed space and time to develop their ideas. They'd stay in the cabin, use the land, have access to mentorship and resources, all completely free. The first fellow was a woman named Jasmine Rodriguez, a single mother from the Bronx with an idea for a language learning app that used augmented reality. She spent a month in Vermont, and when she emerged, she had a working prototype and a pitch deck that eventually secured $3 million in funding. The New York Times did a profile piece. Forbes put me on a list. My mother texted, the first contact in months, asking if I'd seen the articles. I didn't respond. Instead, I threw myself into the work. We funded 12 companies in the first 6 months, a medical device startup run by 2 black women from Howard University, a sustainable fashion brand founded by a Latina immigrant, a fintech company solving real problems for underbanked communities. Every pitch meeting, every term sheet, every success story was a middle finger to everyone who'd ever told me to think smaller, want less, take up less space. And then, 9 months after the dinner that changed everything, Bethany showed up at my office. My assistant, a sharp-eyed woman named Kara who'd been with me for 3 years, buzzed through. Your sister is here. She doesn't have an appointment. I could have said no. Maybe I should have. But I was curious what had driven her to show up after all this time. Send her in. Bethany looked tired. Older. Her clothes were still designer, but they hung on her differently, like she'd lost weight from stress rather than intention. She stood in my office, taking in the view of Manhattan, the minimalist furniture, the wall of awards and press clippings. Nice office, she said finally. Thank you. What do you want, Beth? She flinched at the directness. I wanted to apologize. For everything. For the dinner, for years of taking advantage, for never appreciating you. I waited. Kevin left me, she continued, her voice cracking. 2 months ago. He's been having an affair with his assistant from his studio. The one who was actually painting his work. Turns out she's been his partner in more ways than one. I'm sorry, I said, and I meant it. Not because I forgave her, but because I knew what it felt like to have your reality shattered. Mom and Dad are furious. At me, mostly. They're saying I should have known, should have been more attentive, should have kept him happy. She laughed bitterly. Funny how when you're the one falling apart, suddenly their support comes with conditions. I saw it then, the moment she realized what I'd known for years. That their love had always been transactional, contingent, conditional. What do you want from me, Bethany? Nothing, she said, and I believed her. I don't want anything. I just wanted you to know that you were right. About Kevin, about them, about all of it. And I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. I'm sorry I didn't protect you when we were kids. I'm sorry I let them make you the villain for being strong. Something in my chest cracked, just a little. Not forgiveness, not yet, but the possibility of it, someday. The trust funds for the kids, I said carefully. They're secure. Kevin can't touch them. Make sure they know that money is theirs, for their futures, not for anyone else's expectations. I will. She turned to leave, then paused at the door. You built something amazing, Maddie. I wish I'd told you that before. After she left, I sat at my desk for a long time, thinking about family, about forgiveness, about the difference between the two. That night, I unblocked my father's number and sent a text, "We can have dinner. Just us. No expectations. No demands. Just dinner." His response came 3 minutes later, "I'd like that." It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't reconciliation. It was just a door, slightly ajar, letting in a sliver of light. 6 months later, Harper Ventures was valued at $200 million. We'd funded 37 companies, and 4 had already been acquired by major corporations, returning massive yields to our investors. I had dinner with my dad once a month. We talked about business, about his work, about neutral things that didn't hurt. Sometimes we even laughed. Mom never joined us, and I didn't ask her to. Bethany and I texted occasionally. Carefully. She was rebuilding her life, actually creating her own art now, working part-time at a gallery. The kids were in public school, which she said was better for them anyway. She'd stopped trying to be someone she wasn't. And me? I was living in my penthouse, running my venture capital firm, dating a brilliant environmental lawyer named Rachel who thought my family drama was delightfully dysfunctional and loved me anyway. I was done playing small. Done apologizing for taking up space. Done setting myself on fire to keep other people warm. The little girl who'd been told to be less, to want less, to be grateful for scraps, she'd built an empire. And she'd done it without permission, without approval, without anyone's blessing but her own. That was the best revenge of all.